I used to think saying yes all the time made me a good person. Turns out it was the reason I was exhausted, resentful, and quietly falling apart. People-pleasing looks like kindness, but it's actually a survival strategy. And here's the twist. It comes from the same place as manipulation. In this video, we're going to break down the psychology behind where it comes from and how to stop without losing your relationships or feeling like a jerk. Plus, I'll share 3 practical tools to start building boundaries today. And as a bonus, I'll give you tips on how to deal with the most common blocks that come up, things like guilt, self-doubt, and pushback from other people. So if you've ever bent yourself into a pretzel just to keep someone else happy, this one's for you. There are many paths that can cause us to become people pleasers, but 3 come up more than most. The first most common cause of people pleasing is the fear of rejection. At the heart of people pleasing is often a fear of rejection. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned that belonging often comes with conditions. We might have grown up in environments where, whether it's like school or home or in our relationships, where approval was given when we behaved a certain way and withheld when we didn't. Maybe you learned that if you spoke up, set boundaries, or disappointed someone, you risked losing connection or being seen as difficult. So you started to shape shift. This is also called fawning, a lesser known trauma response where we try to earn safety by being agreeable, helpful, and undemanding. It's not about kindness. It's your nervous system trying to survive. Maybe you began to hide parts of yourself to avoid conflict or overgive in hopes of keeping the peace. The fear wasn't just about disagreement. It was about losing acceptance, which, to our nervous system, can feel like a threat to our safety. Moving on to the second cause, that's the need for validation. People-pleasing also comes from this very human need for validation from others. When you're praised for being easygoing, kind, or so reliable, I love that one personally, and it feels so good, right? At least in the moment. But the problem is, the validation often reinforces the belief that your worth comes from how much you do for others, not for who you are, but from how useful, agreeable, or selfless you appear to be. And over time, this external validation can become addictive. You might find yourself chasing approval, bending over backwards, or sacrificing your own needs just to keep earning those small hits of acceptance. But deep down, you may start to feel resentful, misunderstood, or even invisible. This is where it comes from for me, if I'm honest, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I've always needed a lot of outside validation. I know. And it's taken me years in therapy to work on my internal dialogue so that it's a kind and supportive place to be. And it's taken me years in therapy to work on my own internal dialogue so that it's a kind and supportive place. Making my self-talk more kind and validating has lessened my need to look to others for their approval. And trust me, it's not perfect, but it's definitely gotten better. A good check-in I found is to ask yourself this: would I still be doing all of this if no one praised me for it? Or maybe if no one acknowledged it. That sounds better to me personally. That question helped me realize how much of my people-pleasing was actually performance. And finally, number 3, or the third reason that we do this, is to avoid conflict. Many people-pleasers are driven by a deep desire to maintain harmony. Conflict can feel overwhelming, especially if we grew up in a home where conflict meant yelling, punishment, or emotional disconnection. So we learn to smooth things over. You tell yourself, it's just not worth it, I don't want to rock the boat. And in the short term, avoiding conflict, it can feel like the safer option, right? But in the long term, avoiding hard conversations or holding back your truth doesn't create real peace. It creates silent suffering. True harmony isn't built by avoiding discomfort. It's built by learning how to stand in your truth with compassion, knowing that disagreement doesn't have to mean disconnection. Even though I mentioned these 3 causes as if they occur on their own, know that you might feel like your people-pleasing behavior comes from all of them, and that's completely valid. They're deeply intertwined. The fear of rejection can feed the need for validation. The desire to keep the peace can silence our boundaries, reinforcing the belief that our worth depends on keeping others happy. These patterns often overlap, forming a tangled web of learned behaviors rooted in our early emotional survival. Unraveling them doesn't require perfection, thank God, right? It just starts with awareness, self-compassion, and the courage to choose yourself, one small step at a time. All right, now that we've unpacked the roots of people-pleasing, let's get practical. Let's talk about how you can start to spot the patterns in your own life, because we can't change what we don't first understand, right? So let's do a quick self-check-in. Grab a pen if you have one, or just mentally keep track of your answers as we go. It's pretty simple. Ready? Okay, here we go. Let's start with how you feel. Think back over the past week. Ask yourself, did I feel overwhelmed, exhausted, or resentful because I said yes to something that I didn't actually want to do? Think about it. Did I feel anxious or tense when I thought someone might be disappointed in me? If your answer is yes to either of those, take a mental note. These emotional signals are often the first clue that your people-pleasing patterns might be in play. Think of these feelings as your body waving a little red flag. Hey, we've been here before, and we didn't like it. And your body doesn't lie. It remembers every time you abandoned yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It's like that quote that I love, you can't light yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Next, let's look at your actions. Think about your week again, okay? Ask yourself, did I say yes to something when I really wanted to say no? Did I take on more than I could handle just to avoid letting someone down? I actually was good at this week. I said no when I needed to say no. Did I avoid bringing up something that bothered me because I didn't want to start a conflict? These are common behavioral habits of people-pleasing. And while they might feel like they, keep the peace, over time they tend to build resentment, not towards others, but towards ourselves for not honoring our limits. If you noticed yourself nodding along to any of these, again, just take a mental note. No shame, no judgment, just awareness, right? We're just being curious, not judgmental. And finally, let's look inside your mind, your self-talk and thought loops. Take a moment to reflect on these questions. Am I constantly wondering what people think of me? Sometimes. Do I spend a lot of time replaying conversations, worrying if I said or did the wrong thing? Am I afraid that if I disappoint someone, they'll pull away or think less of me? If those sound familiar, you're not alone. People-pleasing isn't just something you do, it's also something you think a lot about. And those thoughts can quietly shape how you show up in your relationships, your work, or even your relationship with yourself. So let's take a second. How many times did you mentally say yes or nod along during this check-in? 1, 2, maybe most of them, all of them? Whatever your number is, that's your starting point. You don't have to fix everything overnight, but just start noticing when these patterns come up. Maybe save this video, and then you can watch it again later and see if your number went down. So now that you're starting to spot your people-pleasing patterns, let's talk about the tool that helps you break free from them. Boundaries. And I know, even hearing that word might bring up some resistance, because a lot of us were never taught what boundaries actually are. So let's start there. A boundary isn't a wall to keep people out. It's not a punishment. It's not being cold or selfish or difficult. Boundaries are simply the lines you draw to protect your energy, your values, and your well-being. Think of it like this. Your yes means nothing if you don't know when to say no. Your kindness means nothing if it comes from obligation instead of choice. Boundaries are the way that you honor what's true for you while staying in connection with others. And I read this meme the other day that said boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. And I just loved that. It's also important to remember that boundaries aren't about what other people will or won't do. It's about what we will or won't do. For example, a boundary isn't, "Stop talking to me like that." That's a request. And someone has the freedom to listen or not. A boundary is, "If you keep talking to me like that, I will hang up." And if they continue the behavior, we hang up. Because we can't control other people, unfortunately. We can only control ourselves. So, how do you actually start setting these boundaries? Let's break it down into small, manageable steps, because I have a tough time with them too. Now, step number 1 is notice the moment you feel off. The first step is to pause when you feel that inner tension. You know the one. You're about to say yes, or stay silent, or take something on that you really don't have the capacity for. Instead of pushing through it automatically, just pause. Put a little mental space between the urge to please and your response. This tip has been a lifesaver for me. If I just take some time before I reply or before I give a full answer, it gives me the time I need to assess whether or not I actually want to do that or have the capacity to take on that extra work. Pausing gives me the time that I need to make a better decision for myself. Step number 2, ask yourself, what's true for me? I know, it might take you a minute. Next, ask yourself, what do I actually want or need right now? When we people please, we often abandon ourselves, and this helps you tap back in. Do you need more time to think? Do you need to say no? Do you need to ask for something different? Getting honest with yourself is the real starting line of boundary work because you can't communicate a boundary that you haven't acknowledged. Step number 3, start small and practice saying it out loud. And here's the key. Start small, like itty bitty. You don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight. You don't have to give a TED Talk every time you set a limit. Start with simple phrases like, I actually don't have the capacity for that right now. Can I get back to you later after I've had some time to think about it? Or, that doesn't work for me, but here's what I can offer. Maybe write those down for later. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. This tip has also saved me a ton of time because I have this habit of over explaining why I can't do something instead of just saying I can't. I give this elaborate explanation, like I'm trying to prove that I have a real reason for not putting their needs first, as if me not having the time or energy just isn't enough. And yes, doing all of this might feel awkward at first, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Boundary setting is like a muscle, and the more that you use it, the stronger you'll start to feel. Because here's the thing. Every time you honor your boundaries, you build self-trust. You teach your nervous system that you can take care of yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable in the moment. And let's talk about how to handle that because, let's be honest, that's where most people get stuck. We have to normalize this. Discomfort is part of the process. If you've spent years or even decades putting other people's needs ahead of your own, your brain and body have learned that keeping the peace is safe and that disappointing people is dangerous. So when you start setting boundaries, it can trigger your nervous system to sound the alarm. You might feel anxious, guilty, or even like you're doing something wrong. But here's the truth. Discomfort doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. It means you're doing something new. And new things almost always feel uncomfortable at first. Let's talk about guilt specifically because it's one of the biggest blockers. You might feel like you're being selfish, mean, or letting someone down. And that guilt can trick you into backpedaling, taking your boundary back, undoing it, just to feel safe again. But I want you to remember this. Guilt is just a feeling. It's not a fact. It's not proof that you're doing something wrong. In fact, sometimes guilt is a sign that you're finally putting yourself on the list. So when guilt shows up, try saying this to yourself. This feels uncomfortable because it's new, not because it's wrong. I can survive this feeling without abandoning myself. Let the guilt be there, but don't let it drive your choices. I even used to ask myself, would I want someone to do something with me because they felt guilty or because they actually wanted to? And my answer is always that I would only want them to do something with me if they wanted to. So try to remember that. Doing things out of guilt isn't healthy for you or the relationship. Next, let's talk about pushback. Not everyone is going to like your boundaries, especially if they've benefited from you not having any. And that's just part of life. You might hear things like, but you always used to do this for me. Or, why are you being so difficult? Or, why can't you just help me like you used to? When this happens, remember this. Their discomfort is theirs to manage. Your responsibility is to stay true to you. You don't have to explain yourself endlessly. You don't have to defend your every move. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is simply, I understand this is disappointing, but this is what's right for me. And then you pause. Let it hang. Let it be uncomfortable. You don't have to rescue them from it. Finally, after you have set a boundary, take a moment to self-soothe. You might feel shaky. I know that I do. I always have this almost like panicked feeling afterwards where it's like, I don't know, it feels like I ran a marathon or also spoke in front of 1,000 people all at once. And you might start to doubt yourself, but that's okay. Try doing something grounding, like taking a few deep breaths, placing your hand on your heart or stomach to calm your body. Reminding yourself of why this boundary matters to you. You could even just journal about what happened, the process, your feelings that you had, and get it all out in a healthy way. Remember, growth isn't always comfortable, but it's worth it. So the next time you feel that post-boundary discomfort, just know that it's a sign that you're stretching into a more authentic version of yourself. Feel the guilt. Hold the boundary anyway. Now, you just walked through some of the most important emotional skills that you can build. The ability to notice your people-pleasing patterns, start naming your needs, to set boundaries, and the hardest, hold steady through the discomfort that follows. You've learned that people-pleasing isn't your personality, it's a pattern. So as you move forward from here, I invite you to keep practicing. Pay attention to your body's signals. Pause before you say yes out of habit. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes a little. And remind yourself, you are worthy of relationships where your needs matter too. The more you practice, the more natural it's going to feel. And just remember, this is lifelong work, trust me. I've been in it for a long time, and you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep showing up for yourself. And one last thought to carry with you. Think about this. If you stop trying to be liked, who might you become? That's the real freedom on the other side of people pleasing. Until next time, take care of yourself. You're worth it.